You get on, you start talking, you intro, I'm going to start pro.
Yeah,
Go.
we're on. I'm gonna give it a minute. Testing, testing, still loading. Edge of Chaos is coming. I don't know why I'm talking like a robot.
Welcome
Eventually
to
it will
the
load.
Edge of Chaos. There it is. I just got a
Okay. We are
notification.
live, everyone. Joe Ryan here, of course, with Neurotoxin Edge of Chaos Live. We're finally, hopefully, getting this working. Fingers crossed. Pardon us for any technical glitches that may arise. We don't know yet. But we're on. We're here. That's what counts.
Thank you for being with us. Yes, we're two fat guys, one in black, one in white. Get over it.
Los dos
Yeah.
gordos. Maybe that should
Yes,
be the new
fat guy and the really, really fat
the new
guy.
name for the
But
show.
yeah,
Dos
but you know
gordos.
what? We have to get that out of the way because if that's all you have to throw at us, don't bother. We will crush you. All
As
right.
The Rock would say, just bring it.
Yeah, okay. See, to me, that's far more embarrassing than being fat than my double chin. Anyway, Joe, I believe you had a little something
little
about current events you wanted to address before we get on to our main topic
little
today. So,
rant. A little rant, and this also is a description for Trump. Little rant. Um, so all of you who are very mad, very upset that Obama is not standing in Baton Rouge, knee deep in floodwaters with everyone else, I have a little message for you. Now, a valid criticism may have been, without knowing more about what he's been doing from Martha's Vineyard, where he was on vacation, without knowing anything about that, because I don't know about it and you don't know about it. But with that being said, his ability to marshal resources in response from there aside, the fact that you think that he should leave there, cut his vacation short, and go to an active disaster area to help out the flood victims, okay, that is a bad idea. Governor said not to do it. The local officials said not to do it. And the reason why is because a presidential visit requires logistical support, requires security, requires law enforcement, requires closing of roads, restricting of airspace. These things stop emergency response, okay? This is not a disaster that is over and now needs cleaning up. It is an active flood zone that's still not completely. There's still rain falling. I'm in Austin. The weather is moving west to east right now. There's still plenty of weather moving that way as I'm talking to you, all right? So this is not over. This is ongoing. He's going there on Tuesday. That may be a little even soon, depending on the conditions. We don't know yet. Floods take a while. Rivers crest. The flood happens. It recedes. All of that. The point is, if you wanted him to cut his vacation short and simply be on duty, be back in Washington, be in New Orleans or somewhere nearby, that's a valid criticism. I can get behind
here,
that.
here on that one, by the
I
way.
can get
Yes,
behind
I would,
that.
I would agree
Okay?
with that. Yes.
But going and standing in the middle of floodwaters and fucking up traffic and hogging airspace that can be used to bring in goods, bring in relief, people who know what they're doing, trained professionals, Red Cross, FEMA, all those people, that's unacceptable. And Trump going down there and handing out blankets and Play-Doh for 45 seconds does not qualify as helping out in a flood. If he really wanted to help, he would write a fucking check. If he's so charitable as he claims that he is. All right? That is my rant, basically. They always tell you, don't try to come here. If you're already in the area and you're coming to help, great. But if you're trying to fly, if you're trying to, come in from away, a lot of times that ends up screwing things up. And when you're a president or presidential candidate with Secret Service detail, that falls under that category. There's a reason why the governor himself said, do not come. It's more of a pain in the ass, and it's not helping, all right? All the thoughts and prayers and all that stuff and all the accolades deserved go to all of the relief workers. They're doing an impossible job. They need to be left alone to do their job, not be props in a stupid campaign photo op. Fuck you, Donald Trump. No, I'm not giving you any kind of compliment for going down there. All you did was get your fat face in front of a camera. I can do that right here, right now, in my bedroom without fucking with a flood response. Thank you very much. Okay, that's my rant
Now,
on that.
one other thing I wanted to throw in with this, as we're still kind of wrapping up some of the technical issues we're going to have with this. Like I said, this is our first one, so pardon our dust. Is that some people are comparing this to Katrina and to New Orleans, and that's just plain stupid. I'm sorry. I mean, this is, floods and hurricanes are normal for Louisiana, and the problem with Katrina was, 10, 11 years ago, was that there was absolutely no preparation for that disaster. Everyone kind of expected everyone else to do it,
Yeah.
And then when the only person they didn't really negotiate with was Katrina herself.
Yeah.
And then when all that went to shit, no one really knew what to do. That is not what's happening here.
And an important
They
detail on
are
that regard is that they knew Katrina was coming days ahead of time. This storm, they did not have any idea it would be this bad this quickly. It was a lot of rainfall in a short period of time. So there was a lot of caught without warning with this situation that there was not with Katrina. So there's that as well. Sorry.
So I'm sure I'm sure we will find things that were done wrong. I'm sure we'll find problems with the coverage of this and with the way it was prepared for. There usually are. Bureaucracy is never perfect.
Yeah.
But comparing this and trying to compare Obama to Bush with this, just plain stupid, just plain ignorant. Not quite Donald Trump level ignorant, but just plain ignorant nevertheless. Please don't do it. It's just come on now. We have a higher standard. Right, exactly. We have a higher standard than that of news coverage and of commentary. That being said, how about them Olympics?
I do want to start the Olympic thing with one thing that we were going to mention as evidence for how shittily run they were. That now has become, if you haven't been paying attention, Toxin, an embarrassing fucking national fiasco that I'm tired of hearing about. This Ryan Lochte thing. He was caught. Supposedly, I was robbed at gunpoint. We were held. I had a gun to my forehead, and I was made to lay on the ground. As a bullshit. 100%, complete and total fucking bullshit.
Such thing did not occur.
And I should have known when it was Ryan Lochte involved. Has anyone listening ever watched that man talk for more than 3 uninterrupted minutes? It's amazing. You will feel yourself getting dumber. He is a quintessential mimbo. Quintessential mimbo.
There's a mimbo? That's hilarious.
Mimbo,
there are a lot of stupid people. I've met a lot of stupid people in my life, and they're not all self-righteous, narcissistic assholes that have to do something like this.
Yeah.
In order
it's a
to
rare combination.
Get their attention. So it's really not. I don't think this is really explained by his stupidity.
He's a special snowflake. Let's just put it that way.
He definitely
really
is
special. And maybe he's, by that regard, should be in the Paralympics anyway. No offense.
In any case, no. See, that's an insult to every Paralympic athlete.
Right. He's underqualified. Yeah, he had to make this stupid apology and basically smacking. Whatever. I've given it enough time. It's over. But yeah, there have been guys legitimately robbed at gunpoint in Rio, just not him. Anyway. Well,
and that's kind of where I want to go with this. Is I feel like the Olympics, when people look back at the Olympics, I don't know, 500, 1,000 years from now, in this day and age, they're going to look at them the way that we look at the Roman spectacle, the way we look at the bullfights in the Colosseum and all that. They're going to be a representation of how we want our society to look versus how we got everything wrong.
NFL, by the way, will be the same thing in long enough time. Yeah.
Right, but NFL is just in the United States.
Right.
The Olympics are global. That's what I'm trying to say. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I guess sports spectacle in general.
Yeah.
But specifically the Olympics globally and the state of the world. Because every time this happens, it's just there's so much there that just you can't, you can't avoid but just see the similarity and the parallel to the global state of affairs. So you have this global elite that has every politician, well, not every politician, but has politicians in their pockets in every country.
Yes.
And they get in there, and it's you notice how, lately, only really corrupt police states...
Authoritarian, yeah.
Right. Seem to want to host the Olympics.
We'll get to that.
And that includes Great Britain, by the way. London are not off the list. I mean,
it does.
Their version of the Patriot Act made ours look tame, and they abused the shit out of it when they had the Summer Olympics there. And, of course, you have the Winter Olympics in Pyongyang. I mean, Sochi, Russia, and, of course, China, Brazil. I think the last Olympics that actually looked the way was used to seeing as a kid. I used to love the Olympics as a kid. I didn't even watch these Olympics because I can't. I have to boycott this. This is so disgusting.
Yeah,
the last Olympics that I saw that were remotely reasonable in just any kind of civil rights or policy terms was in Greece, in Athens.
And really
Greece is still neck deep in debt from those Olympics.
And it really wasn't. It looked that way. But that was the last, really what it was. That was the last time they were able to make it look that way. The bloom is off that rose now. We know too much.
If we go deep enough into this, I don't think it's ever really been any different. I mean, in 1940, 1940, they had the Olympics in Berlin, Germany.
36.
Just was that 36? I'm pretty
They
sure
had
it's
to
1940.
suspend him in 40.
Okay, I thought it was
40,
the
they were
other
in
way.
World War II. There was no way they had him in World War II.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, no,
36.
I believe you're right. But okay, still, 1936 Germany, probably not the place where
Yeah.
you want to have an event that's supposed to symbolize global peace
Oh,
and
Hitler!
friendship.
Hitler loved it, the idea at least. But then, when all the colored-skinned Americans came and started humiliating his superior race, he didn't like it so much.
Well, that okay, and then
You ever hear? But by the way, you ever hear the Bill Burr joke when he was talking about how it must have been horrible to be sitting with Hitler during the Olympics, especially when Jesse Owens was like basically rubbing in his face that he beat all his Aryan runners, and he was like, "Boy, that must have been a long car ride back." Like, right? Ooh, it's a nice day, yeah.
Wow, that's
Totally,
great. It's so
totally.
true, though. I love it. But then,
Humiliating. Anyway.
okay, then in 1980, you had the Olympics in Moscow
Oh my
under
God.
Leonid Brezhnev, and I can tell you what they did
Wow.
for those. My parents were there; I wasn't quite born yet.
Boy, all
But what they
they kept there and
did
like,
is
oh, look at all the stores. They're full of Coca-Cola and American products. They have lots of stuff here.
there's actually a lot more European than American. But yeah, they basically
Yeah.
rounded up tens of thousands of people in the city. Moscow is huge. People don't realize how big it is. There's already about 12 million people at that point. It's a lot bigger now. So they rounded up probably over 100,000 people in Moscow. Vagabonds, vagrants, drunks, people they didn't want, homeless people. Right? Does
Residents.
this sound familiar a little bit? Does this sound a little familiar? Sound something that's going on right now a little familiar? And they just, in the USSR, they don't fuck around. There's no such thing as civil rights. They just threw them on trains and just took them 100 miles out of the city, figuring by the time they find their way back, the Olympics will be over.
Right.
So they did that.
It's
Then there
a
was the
2-week trip. Yeah, well, that'll be fine.
then there was the intellectual elite that they didn't want in Moscow, which is separate from those people. And these are the people that they don't want talking to foreigners because they might actually tell them what's really going on, and you can't have that.
No, we
you're
don't
at
want
the top
that. No.
20th century. Now a lot of them have given up because there's not a lot you can do, social media and all that. But this is 1980. So
Yeah,
then there
everyone remember the movie The Interview, where they're driving to the
that
compound.
the movie on this show, Joe. We've just hit a new low. I'm sorry.
They go past they're going toward the compound, but they're going through Pyongyang in the movie, and they pass this storefront, and it looks like it's this store packed full of goods, and it's all nicely lit, and there's lots of selection. And the James Franco character is like, "Look, it's not so bad here. They got stuff. Look at this store." And like later in the movie, when he's finally finding out the truth, he gets into that store and he finds out it's a door with a couple of windows and like this diorama scene put in front of the window that's this deep. It's a picture of a store full of goods. It's
funny
not real.
if it was true.
Yeah, that's what Moscow was in 1980.
Oh yeah, it was all smoke and mirrors, and like I said, like Joe said, then they cleaned up the whole city, filled the storefronts. Basically, most Soviet citizens, unless you were already in Moscow and you made it into not being in one of those two groups that they kicked out, were not allowed in Moscow during that time. It was all a show for foreigners. And actually, a few years ago, they had the celebration of the 300-year anniversary of the building of St. Petersburg, which is where Putin's from. It's also where I'm from. They did essentially the same thing. Not a whole lot has changed over there. So when I look at Rio, and I look at literally people being burned out of their homes, and when I say burned, I mean using flamethrowers.
Yeah, literally.
This is, I mean, think about that. Now, granted, you could make the argument, well, those aren't their legitimate homes. They don't have deed to that land. They're in shacks. Those are their homes.
Right.
That's where they live. That's where they lived for years. That's where their children live. I'm sorry. That's where all their earthly possessions are. So how would you like for some government official to come burn you out of your home and then claim some bullshit, well, you didn't really have all your paperwork in order? Does that sound good? That sounds great, doesn't it, Joe?
Oh, yeah. And by the way, that's exactly what happened in Rio.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
The real sports. Everyone go if you have HBO, go to HBO Go. Watch the special. It was 90 minutes. Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel thing. It was all on the Olympics, and it wasn't just about Rio, but it was about Rio as well. About them literally, like they just literally had this one particular neighborhood. They moved in with riot-geared, flak-jacketed cops with tanks, and they literally just started pounding on doors and physically, literally dragging people from their homes, kicking, screaming, whatever. Didn't matter. That's how they built the Olympic Village.
For
Let us
the
not forget.
Olympics.
Let's
I mean,
not
if
forget.
this okay, we complain in this country about this being done for allegedly for security reasons, right? And oh, we're doing this because they're terrorists, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
But this is for a fucking sports spectacle.
And why did
How is this?
that particular neighborhood? They picked neighborhoods that had been thorn in the sides of the elite for a while, and that was for
Oh, absolutely.
direct
They will
purpose.
use
This is
this.
our excuse to go mow this thing down, this eyesore that we've been wanting to deal with. Yeah, that's the way it goes. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, absolutely. And again, so you have that on one side, and on the other side, you have the elite, which I believe you wanted to talk about,
I did.
the IOC. And I mean, these guys, this is something that you showed me that I wasn't super aware of because, I'm always, my social worker mentality, I'm always looking at the poor, not the rich, where these guys, I guess, in China, they had special freeway lanes
Yes.
constructed. Special
freeway lanes. With
while you're
Olympic
burning
insignia
people
on
out
them.
of their homes.
Right. Well, and not
So
only that,
tell
like
us about that.
here's the thing. Here's what happens when you, as a city, get an Olympic Games. You sign this. I think it's basically called the contract, but it's a variety of them. There's a lot of them, and when you read through this shit, and it was Norway that actually finally put a stop to this shit. They were the first country that said, no, fuck you, we're not doing this to our citizens. We're not releasing all of this power to you, this extra national body of unelected elites. No, fuck you. Because Lillehammer, if you think about it, that is like just totally intertwined with Olympic glory. Lillehammer, it's perfect. It's a perfect place for Winter Olympics. It snows there naturally. Like, people are, when they're remembering how much they love the Winter Games, they're thinking of the Lillehammer Games the last time they were there. I think it was in the 80s.
Right.
I think Nagano was another one in the 80s. But why was it in Sochi? And why are they still not? They're maybe going to put it in Beijing for the Winter Games instead of Lillehammer. They can't find anywhere else besides that or Sochi now, or this place in Kazakhstan that's willing to do it.
Well,
Because it's so
Kazakhstan
onerous.
makes a little more sense because it's cold.
But when you're
But
writing,
Beijing, Sochi, no. That's I mean,
Yeah.
when I've said this multiple times, but when I heard about the Winter Olympics being in Russia, I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then when I heard Sochi, I know where that is. I was like,
Sochi?
wait, what? Sochi?
it's like,
That's
oh,
like
the
saying
Winter Olympics is coming to America. Where's it going to be? Venice Beach? What?
Hawaii. Yeah, exactly. That's how stupid that is.
Excuse me?
There's a lot of great places in Russia to have the Winter Olympics. That's just not one of them.
But so you basically, and they made public the contents of these contracts, which had never been done before. You basically surrender to them the rights of your citizens. You basically agree to all of these crazy terms. You have to basically pay these guys way. They get a 4-star, all luxury, super elite guy experience. They don't have to deal with any pesky crowds. You basically, by obligation of contract, have to set up this entire wall around the rest of the plebeians so you can kind of come and go and experience these games while they're going on as you please. And, you're put up in the best hotel. It's closed to the public while you're there. You get all these parties paid for. You get transportation paid for. Everything top notch. And that's just kind of one thing that goes on. All the other shit is like restriction of free speech in and around the Olympic area. You can't tweet or mention or wear anything not sponsored by the Olympics, sanctioned by the IOC, within the walls of the Olympic Village in the Olympic area.
Joe, is there a place where our viewers could see some of this cited or documented what you're talking about?
I mean, I got it from the show, but I've read about it online several places. I don't remember right now, honestly. I don't. I should have that, but I don't. You know what I'll do, though?
We'll go ahead and post it. Yeah, we'll definitely post it on our page after we're done here today.
That's what I'll do.
So, on that same note, and what you're talking about surrendering rights, I mean, we definitely saw a new level of that in Rio, which is interesting because you would think there would be less of this kind of thing going on when the whole world can see it. Like I said, it's not 1980. You can't
and it
hide
happened
this.
in Beijing, too, for the record, in 08.
Oh,
Same
but I mean-
exact thing.
I guess in Beijing, I kind of expect it more, even in a place like Brazil. They have a little bit more civil liberty, a little bit more freedom. I'm not saying they're a free country, but they're definitely a lot freer than China. But what you had literally, what we were talking about earlier, is them going into these favelas, these slums, burning people out of their homes, bulldozing homes so they could build the Olympic Village, allegedly. And surprising only to the government of Rio and the government of Brazil and the IOC, this caused massive riots, massive unrest, massive gang wars, and wars between the gangs and the police. I think what I saw in July, the Rio de Janeiro City Police actually went on strike
Yes, they did.
because Up to that point, 54 police officers had been killed
And
just
they
in
still
that
weren't
city
getting paid.
during 2016. Well, they weren't getting paid. There's that. 54 police officers killed just in that city.
Mm-hmm.
We have not had 54 police officers die in the line of duty here in the United States during 2016. I can vouch for that, and we are about 3 times the size of Brazil population wise. Just for record, just for comparison, for context. So when you see this kind of thing, okay, when you have 54 members of the police force die, just to be fair, okay, we think of, okay, they're sending these police to burn people out of their homes, so you see the police as the bad guys. But no, they're just pawns in this game. They're just regular guys trying to make a living, trying to support their families, being forced to do something I would assume a lot of them don't necessarily want to do, or they're just being pitted against each other with the poor people. And then this is how they're being treated. Okay, there's 50 plus of them dying. They weren't getting paid. They weren't getting benefits. They weren't getting raises. It got to the point where they went on strike. Wasn't there one of them standing at the airport?
There was a few of them, actually.
With a sign saying, welcome to hell, you're not safe.
Don't expect cops to help you. Yeah, you're gonna get shot. Yeah.
So
that's the police. On the medical side,
well, hold on. Let's finish talking about the security first. So then you had the state of Rio, I think it's Rio de Janeiro, but the state that it's in said they were going to send in police, and then they didn't send in enough, and the city government completely blamed the state for not paying the police because they couldn't. They had to blame somebody. You don't blame yourself, right? As we already mentioned with Katrina, who takes responsibility? So eventually, what ended up happening is they ended up getting 3,000 federal paramilitary troops. How would you like 3,000 federal paramilitary troops in your city, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans? How would you like that? Does that sound like
a bristle on that one a little bit?
I mean, I'd be getting my shotgun. That is not okay.
Like, what the fuck is going on? That's probably what you would first ask.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that people, Americans in this country, and Americans on all sides, I mean, you look at Black Lives Matter, you look at, ANCAPs, you look at very conservative Americans, are like, if that happens, we're taking up arms. That's not okay. This is the kind of shit that you hear conspiracy theories about, right? But in Brazil, this actually happened. And these guys had armored vehicles. They were wearing full-on body armor, like they're going to war. And to top it off, they actually put up 3 blimps with complete video surveillance of the entire Olympic area. So everything that's going on, it's all being recorded. Big Brother is watching. Okay, George Orwell is like spinning in his grave.
Welcome to the Olympics, everybody. Yeah.
Are you? I mean, this is the extent to which we're going now.
Yes.
So we can have a sports event.
And this idea that it's just this thing of togetherness and international. No, it isn't. Come on. It may aspire to be that, but no. The reality is so much uglier. That's the sad part.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, what happened with the bus that they wanted to put the Lebanese and the Israeli team on?
Oh,
first of all,
I want to get to the medical thing first, actually, before the bus.
So let's start there. Yes.
Okay, so to pay for these things, not to mention that all of this is on your dime. You have to figure out how to get the money to pay for it. That's the other thing. It's these guys' good time. They're making money, and it's to the point now where you used to make 100% of like the TV and all the revenue. Now they take a cut. I think it was as high as 70-some%. So they're taking a cut now.
You mean the country? You mean the?
Yeah, there used to be all these avenues where they could make money off of it, and it's to the point now. Right, and I think your video jittered there a little bit, but yeah, it's to the point now where you as a host country, you make a lot less than you used to. The promise used to be they're dangling the Olympics of old in front of these new countries to sign on. But you make very, very little, as Greece should have shown people. But anyway, you have to pay for this. So how did Brazil pay for this?
No one has actually come out ahead hosting the Olympics since Greece.
No, they have not.
They all end up in debt. They all actually end up taking a cut on it. And this one, Brazil is going to be the worst of them all because their ticket sales were completely awful.
So what did they do to pay for it? Well, in part, they basically raided and emptied out all of the money in the public health fund of all of the clinics that get funded that are poor, that can't pay for Gee, in Rio, do you think that's a lot of people it's affecting? Nah, there's not that many people.
This was in Brazil. This is federal. But
so they actually had on the Real Sports thing, and I think in other places, people who went into some of these clinics with hidden cameras, some of these hospitals, because they would not allow camera crews, of literally patients lined up just just head to toe, head to toe, head to toe on either sides of this long hallway, laying on the floor, not even having blankets. Like, it's disgusting. And that's what happens when you raid the coffers of a broke country in a time of economic distress. I mean, what is their main source of income? Oil. Is that doing too well right now? No. So they basically bought a Bentley and then lost their job. So this is precisely what went on, and they still have to fucking pay for it because they signed on the dotted line. So guess what? Come hell or high water, make this payment. That's it. That's the way it is.
And
So
I mean,
that's
if you
what
look
happens.
at Brazil politically, also what's been going on. I mean, the president got impeached and is now facing trial
Yeah.
for basically cooking the books of their version of the Federal Reserve, of their central bank.
Mm-hmm.
They took a bunch of money out of it to pay for social programs that they could not afford,
They said,
and then
yeah.
she told the bank to claim it was there when it wasn't. You can't do that. That's just like, I mean, like,
But
really?
then this
You're
guy takes over and basically it's just
printing money, right? That's printing money without even acknowledging you're printing, right? And hold
and
on,
this
but then,
corrupt as fuck guy takes over.
right? Well, that was that.
corrupt as fuck parliament, all of which
Right.
are up on charges too.
And then the other party, the kind of that was the Socialist Party the president was from, and then the Corporatist Party that opposes the Socialist Party, who had the Congress. Does this remind you of anything, by the way, anything similar going on in another country we talk about? The same week he got removed from office because his name was in the Panama Papers. Remember that?
Yeah.
For taking just millions in corporate bribes, just like that. And we're not talking campaign contributions here, folks. If you these aren't American bribes; these are Brazilian bribes.
Yeah.
So I mean, like when I saw that, like I was just thinking, could we be like Brazil for a little bit? Maybe I mean, in a week, the president and the House Speaker. That actually sounds kind of cool, but it doesn't. They're politically and economically to that point,
Yeah.
and they're hosting the Olympics.
Their government's falling apart. Yeah, they can't
Right.
get services.
And
to
that
people.
brings us to the actual Olympics and the conditions for athletes in the Olympic Village. Now, granted, Lochte can go jump off a bridge, no pun intended, in being a swimmer and all that. But let's just say conditions in these Olympics, she made Sochi look like a resort, didn't they?
It's interesting in that I've never watched a rowing competition where one of the obstacles is a severed leg floating by.
Well, that's, they're innovative over there in
Interesting,
Brazil, South America.
I never saw a diving competition where they're diving into a pool full of green slime before.
And didn't some
Interesting.
guy actually go Donald Trump and say chemistry wasn't an exact science in response to
Yes,
that?
yes, they did.
Wow.
Yes,
Hey,
they did.
Trump, I think we found your new campaign manager, buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
inevitably when the third one quits, then he needs a fourth, right?
Right? It'll be like, someone asked him, well, economics is not an exact science.
We're gonna close the show up by talking about you, motherfucker. We're getting to you anyway.
Yeah, geography, with building walls, how do you afford to build a wall across 2,000 miles? Well, geography is not an exact science. I can't. But like, again, you see the similarity, but it's not remotely as bad over here, just politically and economically. This village, I mean, they had several teams actually refuse to stay in the Olympic Village. I'm pretty sure that's a first.
Yeah.
That didn't even happen in Russia, because it was just so bad. There was no running water. The toilets were overflowing with sludge, not even shit, just sludge, because they dug out new sewers and they didn't dig them properly.
And just as a little by the way, a lot of the favelas, they don't have sewers. The sewers are the gutters of the
They
streets.
do now.
Not in the
They-
favelas. They were standing in the middle of the favelas that are still there, and basically you just see the pipes that pop out of the buildings and just drip down into this just kind of gully in the side of the street. And it's just open fucking sewage running, because the favelas, this is the thing about Brazil that Americans don't understand. In America, everyone rich lives on the mountaintop. In Brazil, everyone poor lives on the mountaintop because it's hard to get there.
Definitely on the hillside.
So what do? They just divert the sewage in these gullies downhill. And, they always say shit rolls downhill. In Rio,
It
that's
does.
not a metaphor. Not a metaphor.
It does.
Yeah. So, yeah. So they went all the way to the ocean, a lot of these little gullies. And, yeah, they just drained right out to the open water. Right near the beaches. Yummy. Right? Yeah. So I think that when they were testing some of the water, they were amazed at how many staph-resistant bacteria they were finding and all these other things in the water. It's horrible. It's a genetic fucking stew. It really is.
Well, they're they're breeding new bacteria over there for bioweapons and all that since
And
they're
only
being
that,
asked.
then they got Zika running rampant. I mean, we'll never know the impact of that, maybe. And
No,
some are saying,
I think we'll know the impact.
I mean, some of the scientists were like, well, it's winter down there. It's not going to be that bad. It's not peak season, but
Yeah, I guess. Oh, I guess medicine's not an exact science either now.
it's one of those things where it just gets added to the list of Jesus in there, and then there's that, and then there's this
Everything
other
we're
thing.
describing, it's like if I were Zika or Ebola, I'd want a vacation in Rio right now. I'd be buying front row tickets to these Olympics, and I wouldn't even go to the show.
Luckily, they're bacteria, and they can't think and have plans like that, so that's good.
But they do breed in places where there's poor sanitation. I mean, we saw this with Ebola
Yeah.
with some of the emerging cities in West Africa, particularly in Lagos, Nigeria. And this is, but that at least wasn't, artificially orchestrated. That wasn't a manufactured crisis like this. So, I mean, we're talking about the teams refusing to stay. Now, another thing that happened that I wanted to mention,
The
that
bus.
kind of got thrown out.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about the bus. Another team that had a lot of political problems in Brazil was actually the Russian team, where probably about 2/3 of the athletes were not allowed to participate
Yeah.
because they were doping, and they were all caught doping. But
Different
like
scandal,
what?
yeah.
Right? But the Russian government was saying, "Oh, we're being targeted." They're unfairly, disproportionately profiling the Russian team because the doping tests are supposed to be random. It's like at the airport, you're randomly selected. Same idea, but of course it's randomly my ass. It's
You
nothing
just
random.
randomly pick everyone wearing a turban out of the line. I don't know how random that is, but yeah. Anyway.
Right, essentially. Well, of course. Yeah. But here's the same thing here, though, which, by the way, is so stupid because if you want to get past that, just don't wear a turban, right?
Like Ron
But-
White said, just wear a John Deere hat for travel days. I don't know.
There you go. It's true. But going back to this, the Russian team, they are known for doping. They've been caught doping
that's a
multiple
joke, a
times.
very old joke. From back in the East Germany days, all the East German women look like dudes. Yeah, that whole thing.
Right, and they had
East German woman can shave. I wonder why. Yeah, steroids.
right. They had in the actual Olympics in Russia 2 years ago, the Winter Olympics, there's actually documented proof that they have their own Olympic Council, which of course is controlled by Russians because it's in Russia, that was doing the doping tests, that was replacing their own athletes' urine.
Yeah.
So they could cheat, so their own athletes wouldn't get caught doping, and they won that. They won those games. But here, everyone knows they cheat. So they get targeted, whether or not they admit they're targeting the Russians, and then 2/3 of the team gets excused from the Olympics. Now, you can talk about how corrupt that is and how it's supposed to be random, but here's the thing. Why don't you just not be known for cheating?
There's an idea.
It's like, okay, everyone knows, everyone that comes in with a Russian uniform to the Olympics is just basically a breeding ground for new doping chemicals. It's like these guys are almost having tests performed on them. They're so doped up. And then you expect the IOC to just look the other way, like, nope, nothing to see here. Move along. Come on. And again, I feel like this really feeds into the broader clash of cultures that we're seeing in the modern arena. This is why I wanted to bring this up. I mean, if you look at Syria, right, or in the Ukraine, where the Russian government just patently refuses to acknowledge what it's doing and that it's there. Now, what it's doing isn't really any worse than what any other country is doing. Arming insurgents, we arm insurgents.
Yeah.
Bombing civilians, we bomb civilians. Lying about our actual motivations for being there, we lie about our motivations for being there. That's all fine and dandy, but the difference between Putin and Washington is Putin just flat out denies it. And it's just like it's intelligence insulting. It's mind-boggling to Americans. They just feel like, why would you deny this? Why would you do this?
Just
But
Russian
that's-
soldiers just like vacationing in Ukraine with their guns and tanks.
Right, the
They
Crimea
just,
and all
that's
that.
what they like to do in their off hours. What am I to say that's
Right,
wrong?
and it's right. But here's what people don't understand: you almost have to be Russian yourself to get this. That's normal. This is the kind of propaganda that went on for 70 years of the USSR, and it's hardly stopped. So it seems weird to you because you're not used to that culture, and that's essentially what went on here. It's like if we don't admit that we're doping, and then when we all get caught, we blame the guys who caught us. That's going to be fine, right? Whereas the Western world's looking, are you guys fucking crazy? Like, did they slip something in your alcohol? Because we've seen you drink for decades and it didn't do this to you.
I really think that getting back to the overall corruption, I think, and it's not just the IOC. Look at FIBA, probably the one organization in the world that can give the IOC just as much a run for its money as far as elite corruption. Yeah, the perfect place to have the World Cup in summer is fucking Qatar, in the middle of the summertime, and it's completely reasonable to build 20 fucking soccer stadiums in the middle of Qatar with slave laborers that are dying by the dozens and have no freedom to go anywhere. They have their passports seized. They live in these horribly filthy dorms with no toilet facilities, 30 guys to a room. It's disgusting. It's deplorable. And until countries like Norway step up, grow some fucking balls, and tell these guys to shove their Olympics up their assholes, this shit is not going to stop. When it gets to the point where all you can have it into some jerkwater burg in the middle of Kazakhstan with Borat lighting the fucking Olympic torch and nobody gives a shit anymore, is this shit going to change? Because what's going to happen? When the minute this stops rolling in, then something will change. Until then, nothing's going to fucking change. People are going to die as a result. It should be called out. And in this day and age, one thing I like about social media is you can point this shit out and put it right on TV, right on Facebook in front of everybody, and you can't hide from it anymore. Anyway.
And then the whole world will cry about it as it goes on. Just like we're seeing in Syria. And again, I think it's time we start kind of relating this to the global situation, because I think that's why we started the show with. The other thing was the bus, obviously, for those who live under a rock. The IOC goofed up and decided to put two small teams, Lebanese team and the Israeli team, on the same bus.
Didn't go so good.
That right there, you shouldn't need an explanation for why that's a bad idea.
Didn't go so good.
Right, the Lebanese athletes got on the bus first and decided in SJW BLM fashion to block the entrance to the bus and not let the Israelis on. The Israelis are like, what the fuck, let us on the bus, but they didn't get in a fight. The IOC guys came out, told that bus to go, said, okay, Israelis, we'll get you a new bus. The Israelis, being Israelis, said, no, fuck you, we want our bus, that was our bus. That right there is the Israeli-Palestine conflict for the last 60 years in a nutshell.
Basically.
It's just the stupidity on both sides, the resemblance to the conservative and liberal sides in the United States. Just like, come on, somebody be an adult, please.
That's the thing. All it would take is one person to stand up and have an adult, mature reaction. And we would not see the fuckery that we see.
You guys being stupid, and you guys are being stupid. Just right. I don't care who started it.
Me pick sides.
Just
you both are terrible.
Right. I don't care who started it. Just stop it. Get on the bus, and you all just lost your dessert at lunch.
Yeah, see, this is not hard. Any parent of a kid knows how to handle this situation.
Right.
I don't care who started it. You're finishing it. I'm finishing it right now. You shut up, and you shut up. All right? That's it. Or I'm turning this Olympics around right now.
Right, yeah, that's all you got to do. It's not, but you're looking at this on a global perspective. The other thing that I wanted to bring up that we kind of skimmed over that I think is very important is that it used to be, at least ideally, I don't think this has really happened a great deal. It's happened in a few places, but ideally, the reason that countries wanted to bring the Olympics wasn't just so they get money and made money off of it. It's also for infrastructure. Right. It gave them a reason to build infrastructure, and it's not just about the it's not just about the stadiums. The Olympic Village, and it gives them an opportunity to update their electricity and their water systems and all this. That was the idea. I mean, in Moscow, that was one thing they actually took advantage of relatively well in the 1980s. The Olympic Village is still a place outside of Moscow. It's actually very nice.
The Best Olympics integrated it into their city, yes, as a functioning part of the city.
Well, I mean, they could build a new stadium for it if they wanted. But the idea was you're supposed to use the money to update your infrastructure, which makes it better for the people living in your city. And you pay for it not by forcing people to pay taxes, but hey, cool, let's have all the rich people from all over the world come in and watch some sports here, and we're going to use that money, we're going to redistribute it, and actually build build infrastructure that everyone can enjoy. Okay, I can get behind that. I mean, there's issues with efficiency and all that, but it seemed to work.
But the reality is,
nowadays it's the opposite.
Yeah. And like in Sochi, there was a woman whose house was bulldozed to build the gigantic condo building that is not sitting there. A condo building she can't afford otherwise. They had to give her a condo because, well, they bulldozed her house to put it there. And they did, and it's a piece of shit. It leaks. The sewage backs up in it. It's worse than what she had before. She hates it, but she's stuck there, and that's what it is. It doesn't make it better. It didn't improve anything, and the rest of the place is a fucking ghost town. It's not never used again. That's true more often than not. It's true in
That's
Athens.
actually becoming a big thing. Is with everything they build, then it just sits there and rots, and it
Right.
turns into the new slum
Now
because
it's an
it's slightly
eyesore.
nicer than the old slum that they had to tear down and put there. How do you get this so wrong? It's not rocket science, right?
That's why
But-
London was able to do it, because they had all these places that already could do it, that they didn't have to just go and basically tear down half their city and build all this new shit that had no purpose other than the Olympics.
Also, couldn't get away with that in the UK. Let's face it. It's not Russia. It's not China. It's not Brazil. They had limited violations of civil liberties. They had limited violations of property rights, but they
nothing
couldn't
like
quite
Rio.
get that
Nothing
far.
like
They actually
Beijing.
have democracy. They actually have some political accountability. But that's why the Olympics are starting to go to countries that have none of that stuff. I'm actually surprised they even had the Olympics in London in this century for that reason. Again, the only reason they were able to pull it off was because they were able to use a lot of the lingering restrictions on civil liberties from the war on terror days.
Yeah.
So this, even in that sense, it's reflective of the modern world. Who would have tolerated even the 20th century blimps with full video surveillance of your city? You did that in the United States.
Everyone
90s?
hosting a Super Bowl does.
Of course. I mean, no, not to that extent.
I'm just
no.
kidding. No.
No, it's really not. I mean, I hear you, but it's not the same thing. They also don't have 3,000 militarized police on the streets.
Not usually.
So now, when you say this is where Joe and I are going to disagree. This is the disagreement he and I always
Ooh, the
have. So
disagreement.
it's the kind of trademark disagreement of the show. Is you're saying, hopefully this comes out, hopefully this is countenanced. Someone's an adult because it's being bitched about on social media. I don't see it, and I'll tell you why I don't see it.
Not just social
because-
media, countries themselves saying no.
But every day, I log into Facebook, I look on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, and I see pictures of children that have been blown up in airstrikes in Syria.
Yeah, I think
Now,
there was that one
I
picture that
don't
went viral. on
care
Facebook.
who blew them up.
Right.
Listen to me. Look at me right now, everyone watching. I don't care who blew them up. How is that? If you're fixating on that, you're missing the entire point. What does it matter? You have this shit show of a war. It's been going on for 5 years now.
Won't end.
Nobody knows who's on whose side. It's like, who are the good guys? Is it Al Qaeda or is it Hezbollah? Who are the good guys? Remind me. Which of these
I don't
sides
know.
are?
Or in
I-
Yemen, is it Saudi Arabia or Iran? I don't know. I have no
Right.
idea.
Is it Turkey or Russia? Yeah, same idea. But in the middle of this, but every one of these places, every one of these countries, including Al Qaeda and Hezbollah, they're full of propaganda, talking about how great they are and all the things they want to do for their infrastructure and how this is necessary, and they're victimized, and the other guys are the bad guys. And in the meantime, you have poor children being blown up. And then you have hundreds of thousands of refugees running in every direction. And we've addressed this on the show before, where, oh, they should go home. Go fucking where?
Have you looked at Aleppo lately?
That pile of rubble over there that used to be their house? You want them to go, that you blew up, you want them to go there. That's their home, in your opinion.
And
So-
we might have to let Toxic go for a minute to go kick the dick of the asshole whose car alarm keeps going off.
Well, there's not a...
The
Unfortunately, that's,
joy of
you know.
loud live broadcasting. You live.
I know, right? You get to hear everything that's going on.
Just
So...
go out there live and just yell, "Shut up!" Anyway.
No, I know that guy. Don't encourage me. I know who's doing it. And please don't encourage me to go put a brick through his window. In any case,
I forgot the brick ready, don't you?
you want to see the brick?
No,
So, in any
okay.
so our viewers want to see the brick. So that's evidence. Now I can't actually go do it tonight because now people can point
Now,
to this
a
podcast.
brick found its way through his window somehow.
Oh, all right, so twice. In any case,
Fell out of the sky, yeah.
yeah, moving on. We're talking about the children in Syria. So even as all this is going on, and you do have people bitching and whining about it, you do have people saying, "Hey, this is a really terrible situation. It's terrible what's happening to people who live there who have nothing to do with this conflict.
Yeah.
It's terrible what's happening to these refugees and how they're being treated where they go." And yeah, I mean, there's security concerns, but that does not negate the other, doesn't negate that fact. And you have people complaining about this. And then we take a look at what's going on politically in the countries that are involved that actually have some semblance of democracy and representation. I'm not even talking about Russia or Saudi Arabia. Those places are lost causes. I'm talking, let's start with the UK. So, what happened on the two sides of the Brexit? You have David Cameron, who is gingerly doing the bombing,
Yeah.
and supporting the bombing and dropping supplies to Al Qaeda so they can fight Hezbollah and ISIS. If anyone can please explain to me how that's reasonable, I really want to hear it.
I would love to know that.
Yeah, I really want to understand the rationale behind that. And then on the other side of it, you have these pro-Brexit psychos talking about how terrible it is that Britain's going to be under Sharia law after 5 years when all these immigrants come in and they're going to take over with their Islam, even though just about every act of Islamic terrorism in Europe and in the United States the last 5 years has been committed by someone that was either born there or came over as a small child. So which of these sides is going to worry about the humanitarian disaster going there?
Yeah.
Well, there.
Neither nor,
Okay.
I guess.
And then the United States. We told you we'd come back to you.
We didn't forget about you, motherfucker.
So now let's take a look at the two choices we have here for president. Now, let's start with Hillary, since we already hit Trump today.
Well, three and a half choices, but anyways.
Right, yeah, it's great to have choices. Let's see. She voted for the war in Iraq.
Which started this ball rolling in part.
And eventually led to the formation of ISIS.
Yeah.
Which is part of this, and which seems to be provoking and radicalizing most of the terrorists who do this. That's one option, and she's been heavily involved. Libya, Syria, heavily in favor of dropping supplies, arming, and funding the insurgents so they can fight each other. So I really don't see how her foreign policy is any different from the last, 16 years. And on the other side, we have Donald Trump, who wants to put ID badges on all Muslims.
Not letting that are coming in, yeah.
Country. And then what was he talking about? Nuking their families? Was that him or was that Ted Cruz?
Well, he wanted. Well, let's go back to the primary. Ted Cruz wanted to nuke the place until the soil glowed green.
And then they put it in the swimming pools in Rio.
Trump said, right, yeah. Trump said he wanted to kill their families, which I guess I thought to mean like sending special ops to like bust in the house in the middle of the night and slit everyone's throats or something. And
so they can experience of the people in the favelas.
There was a rumor, right? There was a rumor that came out that Trump, in one of the little briefings he got on national security, was like, "Oh, why can't we just drop nukes on ISIS in Syria? Why can't we just nuke people?" And there was that. That it may not be true. I don't know. If it is, God help us.
So again. Isn't it great to have a choice?
Isn't it great to have choices? Yeah. And anyone, by the way, I want to mention the third choice. I'm not going to mention Jill Stein. Fuck her. She ruined any kind of.
That's a different show.
If you go anti-vax, fuck you. You're done. You're over. So anyway, she was never polling higher than 0.5% anyway.
That way, she wants everyone to have the Zika experience from you. Yeah, everything. Cool. It's like, which way do you want to die?
Yeah, basically.
Those are your choices.
Gary Johnson. I don't remember who it was that was interviewing him, but there was a recent interview he did that kind of went around the talk radio circuit, where they were asking him a speed round questions, which usually are bullshit, right? It doesn't allow you to expand on your answer. It's great for sound bites and not much content. But there was one thing he said that I thought was he managed to get a couple of little pithy lines in and really make a good statement that's sorely lacking in this discourse, where she said, did Obama found ISIS, a ridiculous, stupid statement that Donald Trump had made. That's why she was reiterating it. She wanted him to denounce it, and he did. It's a stupid statement, and we won't get into that. We already mentioned it. But he said unintentionally. And then you could hear the audience kind of murmuring and oohing and ahhing, not booing, but kind of going, huh, well, yeah. And he went, they armed this side, they armed that side. They wanted them to fight each other, now they are. That was the start of all this. That's the policy we've had for any president in the last however many years. That's what you get. Unintentionally. Yeah. So he's got a point there.
No, he's absolutely right.
Did they go over and literally say, okay, here's your black flag, now you're called ISIS, now go kill other people?
And a few $100 million in U.S. military machinery.
Did they have a whole warehouse full of USA branded fucking guns, bombs, and all other kinds of shit that they were basically able to just take and then use to do whatever with? with no accountability that became this thing we're now dealing with. Yes.
Well, it
And
got
she
so much
supported.
worse than that. There's so much worse.
Yes.
First of all, this war, and I mean, I encourage everyone to look up Jeremy Scahill and read his book Dirty Wars, and there's a
Great
couple
book.
of very good documentaries that have been done on this, where the contractors in the U.S. just got so out of control with Iraq, where they would just ship tons and tons and tons of military equipment and machinery to Iraq. A lot of it was for use by private contractors, some of them Iraqi private contractors. So think about this now. You're giving our weapons at our expense to private contractors in Iraq. Remember you're all bitching about Obama not vetting the insurgents in Syria? And you're absolutely right.
He was just
How do you
doing what
think
Bush
those
did
guys
in
were
Iraq.
vetted, right? But it's even worse because it's not that the person buying them is going to do anything with them, but they don't even necessarily buy them. They pay like a nominal fee because the U.S. government, at my expense, at your expense, covers most of the costs.
Yeah, the government bought them. They just want to cut
Right.
back. Yeah.
Give them to the contractors. What do you do? What do you do with a bunch of shit you can get real cheap that there's plenty of demand for?
You sell it.
Yes, sell it.
And hey, they wanted to spread capitalism in Iraq. Bam, they did it.
That's not capitalism. Don't even get me started on that statement. And then 2 months later, you have our service members that are volunteered to be there, that are getting paid $7 an hour to be supposedly building democracy in this desert shithole. It's like, where the fuck are the insurgents getting this shit? Gee, I wonder.
Oh, gee, Sergeant, all these guns look like our guns. They do?
What
Look at
guns?
that.
Tanks.
Manufactured in America. What the fuck? Yeah.
It's like, you remember the scene from the first Iron Man movie, right? Where he's in like Mongolia or Afghanistan.
Afghanistan.
He finds the rocket that's like Stark Industries, and he's all freaked out.
Yeah.
That's reality. That's not news. That's what happens.
Instead of Stark Industries, it says Raytheon, but same thing.
Right. Well, yeah, the Halliburton. And then, on top of that, that was just the Iraq War. Then the idiots we left in charge in Iraq, they lasted, what, a year and a half?
If that,
They're
yeah.
a complete fucking joke. They're supposed to be moderate Shia, which, a moderate Shia, for those not familiar with Islam, is like a moderate evangelical. The Shia, definitely the far more conservative, far more extreme side
And
of
then,
Islam.
of course, what does he do?
Doesn't
He
mean they're
starts,
all terrorists.
he starts pushing all non-Shia out of the government, which he wasn't supposed to do.
Well, but the thing is, he was doing that because he knew the radical Shia were going to take him out, and that's who took him down. It wasn't the Sunnis.
No.
The Shia took him down, and it was a military coup that was basically orchestrated by the Iranian Secret Service. And they put a different guy in charge. So all their military, as Daesh or ISIS is advancing on Mosul and Fallujah and those places, they're having a coup in Baghdad. So they basically drop their weapons, drop their equipment, and run to Baghdad to help with the coup. And then now Daesh says, oh, look, we took Mosul with 300 fighters. Yeah, because you know how many fighters the other side had? None. Zero.
Yeah, in 91, we took Mosul with not many fighters, too. Same
And
thing.
they didn't get to the Kurdish side of Mosul because those guys are like, fuck off.
Yeah.
But my point is,
We already got the insurgents here, yeah.
right. That's where they get their weapons, and so that's Daesh. And then, but then the conflict actually going on in Syria proper, especially on the insurgent side, where are all those guys getting their weapons? I mean, we don't supply the people. Turkmenistan and Yemen and Mauritania do that. And I won't even talk about how scary that is. That you're having these guys from countries you've never heard of being shipped in at the behest of the Turkish and the Saudi government because they've colonized those countries completely. And these are literally tribal warriors that they're illiterate. They have no education. It's just fighting the Soviet way, and Turkmenistan was actually a Soviet republic. It's like, hey, dude, here's a gun. That's the guy you go kill, and then you get $300 to take home to your family.
If you live.
Well, that's obvious. You're getting a gun. They know that. Right? So the tribal militias.
And we promise if you die, we'll send the $300 back. No, we won't.
And then if you die, they get $500.
Oh, well.
And then you wonder why these guys change sides and join Daesh. Well, let's see. They're coming from places where women are treated like livestock, where civil rights are they don't even know what that is. They have to look that up in the dictionary, and they can't read, so forget that. a lot of these places were not Turkmenistan, but a lot of places where actually they are very militant Islamic emirates. So they get a couple of months of that war, and they're like, "This is stupid. This is just Russians dropping weapons for the Syrian government, and Americans and British dropping weapons for the insurgents, and it's not going anywhere. It's like Hemingway's war, right?
Yeah.
Where in World War I, where just France and Germany just retake the same place 40 times. This sucks, and we're complete puppets of these superpowers that we can't even see. But those guys over there with the black flags, they sure look like a lot of the guys back home. And it's the only independent entity. You have to give Daesh this one, and I wouldn't even say it's credit. I wouldn't give Daesh credit. There's one thing you have to acknowledge. It's the one entity there that has no documented connections to anyone else.
That's true.
But when Gary Johnson said that the United States policy, and really it's not the States, it's NATO, it's Britain, it's Australia, it's everyone that's been involved, and the other side as well, Russia, China, well, not really China, because China's not super involved, Iran, anyone that's been involved, created them. They're absolutely right, because guess what? The people living in these parts of Syria and Iraq, especially in these shit parts of Syria and Iraq in the middle of the desert, they're tired of being bombed. They don't even know why they're being bombed.
Imagine
but they've
that.
been perpetually for like the last 60 years. Look at the history of Syria. It's way worse than Iraq. And they want independence. They want one entity that's going to represent their interests and not foreign interests. And every single government those places have had, every single one has been answerable to someone else. And that goes back thousands of years. I mean, we're talking the Ottoman Empire and all that. Again, I am not in any way, shape, or form trying to recognize Daesh in a positive fashion, because they're not. But what do you expect when you do this?
Yeah.
Decades and decades, and the founding fathers wrote about this blowback.
Right.
That if you do this, and do this, this is what's going to happen. So I guess going back to my original point on how we switched to Syria from the Olympics, maybe that's where they can hold the Olympics next year. Syria.
Oh, yeah.
Damascus.
It won't be any big problem. They'll just bulldoze the blown up cities they have to build. The
I mean, if anyone needs infrastructure investment, right?
God.
Just don't mind the bombers flying overhead, and the missiles and the
Because of course the war was still going on. That's the one thing. And this is getting to be close to an hour, so people might be tired of hearing from us by now. So maybe we'll wrap up soon. But I think the one thing that should be acknowledged in this election, where all that we keep hearing about, and obviously we cover it here because I mean it's in the culture. But wouldn't it be nice if once during an election of kind of an important election that we have, and that at any point we would have these candidates discuss the fucking wars we're still fighting? I mean, what? We don't... It doesn't even get talked about. And give MSNBC credit, they actually set up a Commander-in-Chief forum that's going to go on, I think it's in a couple of weeks, a debate that's not a debate, a presidential debate, but they're going to have a town hall where they're going to have each of them on one at a time, not together, for an hour apiece, to basically talk about this shit. It's like the fact that we've been at war for 15 straight years, and it barely mentions, it barely gets mentioned in either acceptance speech. That's disgusting. And just the fact that we have a volunteer fighting force and not a draft anymore does not mean that we get to forget about the fact that this shit is still going on. And after Obama, for whatever reason, no, Afghanistan is not his war. But yes, he did promise to end it, and yes, he is going to break that promise. He's handing that off to whoever.
We're still there. We're still there.
No end in sight, and now we're still in Iraq thanks to Daesh. This shit is just never fucking ending, and nothing we're doing. You answer me one question? Anyone who still thinks we should be there, has being there since we went there, is staying there, has that made any long-term positive contribution? No.
I suppose if you work for
bullshit, it's not true.
I suppose if you're a shareholder for Raytheon or Halliburton, it has.
Surge did not work in that regard. It's ridiculous that it just keeps going and going. We need to just leave and let them sort this shit out.
Well, but here's again. No, I'm with you 100%. There are no good guys. No. There's no point in getting involved because
we know who it is. We don't. We've proven it over and over again. Pick one good guy once, and maybe I'll give you some credit. Until you do, no, get the fuck out. Stop this shit.
But what I'm saying, again, this is where my cynicism really starts to come out, is as much as I agree with you, Joe, Where I don't agree is that any of this is going to change. Just like the Olympics aren't going to change, people are watching this. That's why I don't think the Olympics can change, because people are watching this, which is way more serious than the Olympics. It's been going on for 5 years now. Nothing's changing. I wouldn't say nobody cares. People do care. But when it comes down to the electoral system and the way our politics works, it always comes down to which asshole do I hate less. The reason this isn't being brought up is because no one's got time for it. People are too busy just trying to sift through the Trump and Hillary propaganda. I mean, really, I don't think Gary Johnson is all that great. He certainly wasn't my choice for Libertarian nominee. But compared to those two,
there's a road.
He's like a godsend. Come on, please give me President Gary Johnson. It's something. He's at least talking about the issues, and he's not a fucking psycho. Like a lot of libertarians talks about, okay, well, I want this policy, but we can't just throw out the last 40 years of policy. We have to implement it gradually. He's actually talking about the issues. He's actually talking about how to implement them. So I mean, next to Hillary and Trump, it's like a freaking genius.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is,
I honestly. High bar. Granted, but
no, not at all. So I feel like, where we're headed with this, and I used to laugh at this. Those that have been following the show for a while, 3 or 4 years. I used to laugh at this. I used to say, yep, it's all going to come down, but like it's not funny anymore because it's happening. It's happening, and reasonably, it's relatively easy. The policy is relatively straightforward, relatively simple, relatively objective for what we need to do to address a lot of these problems. And no one's doing it because people are too busy worrying, like just being ignorant and blaming everyone in sight. Like, for example, this whole movement with Donald Trump, oh, it's the illegal immigrants. Where did the illegal immigrants touch you that you didn't like? I mean, really? No, but this is so stupid. It's so 1936 Germany. It's terrifying. And it's not Trump that's terrifying. Trump's just an idiot. It's the widespread belief that somehow 13 million people in this country that are undocumented, somehow all this is their fault.
Right.
Huh. And those are people that happen to be disenfranchised, they can't vote, and they're not politically represented. That has nothing to do with it, of course. No, not at all.
No.
Gee. Yeah. I mean, how do you even get from A to B? And I've yet to meet anyone that supports forced deportation, border walls, that can actually provide one iota of legitimate evidence that that's a good idea, that's going to solve anything, or that it's even workable. And I'm not talking about like security, immigration control for like vetting refugees and all that. In fact, if you open the borders and you stop talking about walls, you'll actually have the resources to vet refugees and make sure we don't let in terrorists. Not by blanketly keeping out Muslims, by actually doing background checks that work. But what I'm saying is just specifically this fixation on the undocumented. I mean, this is not the first time this has happened. We had the quote-unquote yellow peril in the late 19th century during the Gilded Age. Oh, because they're taking our jobs. Gee. Huh.
Sounds
wow. How far we've come. And,
in the 1910s and 20s, it was the Irish and the Italians.
No. That was more like the 1840s. 1910s, 1920s, it was more the Eastern Europeans because World War One is going on. But yes, you're right. You've got the year. Yeah. Right. And, what's more American than a sausage pizza? What's more American than Panda Express? You think they have Panda Express in China?
It's spaghetti and meatball, yeah. I know. It's like, and honestly, we've gotten to the point now where, here's the thing, and it's, like I said, we should probably start wrapping, but here's the number one thing that really pisses me off about this election, and we need to stop fucking doing this. Don't be one of those drone people, and I think that luckily this is a very scant minority of people, that act like there wasn't a history of things that happened that totally are factually correct that actually did, yes, actually I'm serious, happen. Before Obama took over the presidency. Like this dumb bitch that gets on, and I ordinarily don't like using sexist terms like that on the air, but I'm going to say it about this lady, I forget her name, this dark-haired lady who's gone on CNN and just put her foot in her mouth every time she starts flapping her lip. This whole thing of, oh, Afghanistan, that was Obama's war. He started that, and then
Well,
Giuliani. Oh well, there were no extremist attacks in the 8 years, eight years before
here's the
Obama.
thing.
Really, really, you've got
Here's
to
the
the
thing.
point where you're not even like cognizant of.
I
facts.
agree with you, but that
Fact
goes
free.
both ways. When you see Hillary zombies talking about how, oh, Hillary has always looked out for the middle class and minorities. Well, I'm sure she's looked out for them when she
That is
suspended
a
the
lot
Fourth Amendment.
vaguer. That is a lot vaguer, and Donald Trump supporters have said vague shit like that all the time about how charitable he supposedly is. That is not denying that an attack that happened and killed 3,000 fucking people, and is the only reason why we're even hearing from a fat idiot like Giuliani. Yes, I'm going to call other people fat idiots. It didn't happen. Are you fucking kidding me? No.
No, Joe.
That's
I'm
not,
going to disagree
that's
with
not
you.
okay.
Joe,
to deny
I'm going to
that.
disagree with you. I'm going to disagree with you about which one's worse. Anyone with half a brain and a little bit of knowledge of history knows that's just plain wrong. But when you claim that Hillary is honest and trustworthy, that she's a peace candidate, that she does not support big banks and she's not a corporate
She's a
whore,
peace candidate.
and that she looks out for the poor and minorities, when you say those things, whoever disagrees actually has to go look it up and show you facts and find proof that that's not the case, and then she'll weasel her way out of it and explain that somehow bombing people makes her still the peace candidate. And yes, I've heard that, and I'll provide it
Who
for you.
called her the peace candidate?
Well, they don't use those words, but they claim that because she's a Democrat, she's not pro-war. Are you fucking kidding me? Have you heard of Vietnam?
I've heard that implied. I don't think I've heard
But
it
this
explicitly
is-
stated, but
But my point is,
not as vehemently as this
I-
lady's.
it's
vehemently
actually
stated that
harder
Afghanistan was
to
the Obama
argue
war.
with Hillary zombies, because with a Trump zombie, all you have to do is show them the fact. It's like, oh, you don't believe in gravity? Why don't you go jump off that building?
They don't concede the fact even when you show it to them. Though.
They run away. Hillary zombies will argue with you. I had one tell me, you ready for this shit?
Here, I want to.
No, hold on. No. You gotta hear this shit. You gotta hear this shit.
This is the key
Okay?
difference.
No,
You're
you
talking
gotta hear
about
this shit. You gotta hear this shit.
supporters,
You gotta hear this shit.
not
Okay? I had a Hillary zombie once tell me that Hillary was not responsible for her vote for the war in Iraq because all she did was authorize the president. And the president then did what he did, and he shouldn't have done that.
I've heard
Are
that
you
line.
fucking kidding me?
But here's the difference.
Again, I'm really not sure which one's worse.
Here's the difference.
From that perspective. What's the difference?
Here's the
Jeff?
difference. You're quoting what supporters are saying. I'm quoting what Trump's spokesperson, a member of the campaign, is saying. That's a completely different thing. Because if you're saying that Trump sanctioned the shirtless Trump supporter in Phoenix screaming at a Latino, "Cut my burrito, bitch," I don't think that he would have necessarily approved of that. Particularly
I don't know.
action.
I don't know.
That's apples and oranges. Apples and oranges. Supporters of candidates say and have said all kinds of stupid ass fucking things. I believe anything on that regard on either side. It doesn't matter. Up to and including Stein supporters vehemently loving her because she's anti-vax. So that's all gloves are off. All bets are off when it comes to supporters. Obviously, if they're for their horse, they're going to say anything and believe anything.
We're talking about different things, Joe. You're talking about the candidates,
Yeah.
whereas I'm talking about popular perception and popular opinion and why we
Can't,
have
as a
these
candidate,
and-
send a person out to claim that a historical thing didn't fucking happen when that historical thing didn't even happen that long ago.
Apparently, you can because it works, as you can see.
It didn't work. It circled the internet within seconds, and she was a laughing stock again. Why she hasn't been fired? I have no idea.
Because Trump probably believes this now because she said it. But anyway, we're going to wrap up. I think that we're really just a little bit on different wavelengths here. What I'm saying, Joe, is this is the state of humanity. People would rather argue about shit like this than actually look at places like Syria or Rio and think, what can we do? Because it's too hard. It takes a lot of work. You're going to turn into the guy that all the idiots are laughing at and saying, hey, you don't believe that we need to deport all the illegals? You don't believe that Hillary looks out for minorities? Like, shut the fuck up. And we're living in a world where what's collectively accepted is more important than what actually happened. And the Trump campaign is not doing anything other than just pushing the boundaries of that and seeing how far they can get with just plain fact denial. And I'm not shocked by how far they're getting because I've seen this for decades. I mean, what about the WMD in Iraq? There are people who still to this day deny that that was a lie.
Yeah, I know that Hannity was like, oh, they ended up in Syria. That's why Assad had them to use.
Shut the fuck up. No, Assad
Acting
had
like
his own.
Assad couldn't just have his own. Really? It's like, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the state of things. I think this wasn't how we planned for the show to go, but it went very well. So we
Hey,
thank
the
you.
best things aren't planned.
Thank you for being with us
I want
today.
to get to the housekeeping. If you look at the bottom of your screen, I very intentionally put that banner, not just to fill space, because that does help, but to give the particulars there. The website, the Facebook page, Twitter, it's all there if you've been watching this. So I don't have to rattle them off, luckily, or waste time. So yeah, hit us up, share, comment. The one thing that's not here, by the way, if you search for recorded stuff, and I haven't worked out the logistics of this yet, but I'm going to put the audio of this on our SoundCloud and iTunes podcast feed if I can. There's got to be a way. I'm sure there is. So if you want to just listen to this and not to look at our fat asses, that is an option as well. So yeah, anyway. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for making our first video podcast a success. We'll definitely be seeing you soon. I want to thank Vicky Knudsen. I want to thank Robert and Christine Spencer. I want to thank Govind Ramabhadran for helping us promote today. Great thanks goes out. We couldn't have done it without you guys. I want to thank all our regular viewers. Please, the best thing you can do for us, the best thing you can do to help us is to tell your friends, tag them when we go on, have them like our page. We need the virality. We need people to know about us. Nothing we're going to do here, even though I'm kind of semi-professional at virality and all that, nothing I'm going to do is going to be better than your word of mouth. That's what we need. Thank you, Joe, for your hard work figuring out how to do this, the technical side. Thank you. You know, people often don't see the work you do on this because it's all behind the scenes, but thank you for that. Shout out to our graphic and design guy who is currently in the hospital. Wish you a speedy recovery.
Well soon.
Thank you all for being with us.
Hey, for an announcement before we go all together. Next Tuesday, Donald Trump is coming to Austin. I will go.
I'm sorry, Joe.
I will go.
Let's have a moment of silence.
I will.
Condolences for Joe. I'm kidding.
He's going to be 5 minutes from my work and starting to speak after I get off work. How can I not go?
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm going to try to go to broadcast live with my little shaky phone and maybe talk to some Trump supporters. Let's see how it goes, all right? So tune in.
So Joe is going to come back for our next show, 2 IQ points dumber. And
just 2, right?
Well, you don't got that much to lose. Sorry, I had to. Please clarify, this is going to be August 23rd or August 30th?
That would be this coming Tuesday, the 23rd.
Okay, so August 23rd. So we'll hopefully see you then.
The speech is at 7:30 Central. I'm going to be there at 7 Central, so maybe I'll get a little beforehand time talking to people, maybe afterwards. So anytime in that, let's say, 7 to 9 something Central window is when I'll be on. And you'll see a notification if you like our page in your Facebook feed that we've gone live. So
thank you very much for being with us. I'm Neurotoxin.
I'm Joe Ryan. Thanks for listening.